All right, we are back again today with Mike Spring. He's a local creator here in Albany, and we talked to him a couple months ago about his Kickstarter for the first issue of Red, White, and Broke, which I have the first 3 issues. And he currently, I think he has a week left to go in this kickstarting the second issue. So I'll follow this under better late than never. We've been trying to kind of find this time to talk, and then we had some internet problems. Go figure. So he's finally here.
Hello.
how's it going?
Good. How are you, Chad?
Oh, living life.
That's right. That's right. Thanks for having me back.
So, thanks for writing such a great first issue that I was, interested and wanted to have you back.
I appreciate that. I'm glad you liked it.
So, before we get into about the new Kickstarter, how did the first Kickstarter, wind up on your part? I mean, it wasn't your first Kickstarter, but it was your first Kickstarter as a comic book project.
It was, yeah. I've done a couple before for some other writing projects, but this was my first foray into comics. And I have to say, in all modesty, it went very well. We hit 200% of our goal, which is always a great thing. And the book got published and printed and out to people's hands within 3 months, which is almost unheard of on Kickstarter. So I'm very proud of that. And the response has been really positive. Look, I like to think I'm a great writer, right? Of course. I mean, I think most writers like to think they do something good, but until you put it out there, you don't really know if people are going to respond to it or not. And, I got a lot of really positive comments from friends and family, which is great. But I also got a lot of really positive comments about the book from people I don't know. And I feel like that's always kind of a really good measure of success, because strangers will tell you if your book sucks. I mean, they're not shy on the internet telling you, hey, this book wasn't so good. It's been very gratifying that a lot of people who pledged on the first issue have been back for the second issue and been giving me a lot of comments. They can't wait to read it. They really enjoyed the first one, stuff like that. So not tooting my own horn, just saying it's nice to know that, I'm not going to win any awards anytime soon, but I think at least I have dialed into something that people are enjoying. And that's really what my goal was. Yeah.
So could you give us a summary of what happened in the first issue and kind of where this next picks up?
Sure thing. So issue 1 starts off with our hero, Captain Stronghold, going on national television and revealing his secret identity to the world, because he reveals he is flat broke. He's an average Joe who got superpowers. He works a bunch of different jobs, and he keeps getting fired from them because every time he goes off to save the world and leaves his job unexplainedly for a couple hours, they don't like that, and he gets fired. So now he's been through all these jobs. He's about to get evicted. He doesn't have any money. So he goes on television, tells the world who he is, and says, I am kickstarting a campaign to fund my superheroics. And that's the gist of the first issue. And then at the end, there's a bit of a cliffhanger where his nemesis shows up and threatens to, blow some people up. And that's where we leave it hanging, which leads us into issue 2, which I will say, no spoilers, but the cliffhanger does get resolved. I don't like to leave things hanging for too long. And then what we do, we learn a lot about Captain Stronghold's origin, his beginnings as a superhero, what his first mission, so to speak, was like. Spoiler alert, it didn't go very well. And then we meet some new villains, and there may or may not be another cliffhanger involved, but it's a really fun issue that I'm really proud of. It's got a lot of humor like the first one, but also I think I amped up the action a little bit this time, so I'm real excited about that.
And so let's talk about creative team. I know that we've, in our last interview, we probably talked about them before, but who are you working with, and how did you, meet them?
Sure, I'm happy to
find out about their work.
Right, I'm happy to talk about them because the book wouldn't be what it is without them. And the joke I always make is if I was drawing it, it would just be two people's heads talking to each other for 24 pages, which would not be all that interesting. My artist is a guy named Dennis Torona. He lives in the Philippines. He's utterly fantastic, and he is so good at interpreting and putting his own spin on things that I've gotten to the point now where I can just basically script the dialogue and any major action that needs to happen, and he can just take it and make it look interesting. And he comes up with all different ways showing things, different ways of flashing back to things, different angles to use. So it's never the same page twice. And I really don't think that I would have been able to do the book without him, because he's terrific. And then Tiago Brandão is my colorist. He's from Brazil, so we have a nice international team, and he is also just fantastic. Dennis's pages come in, and I'm always blown away by how great they look in black and white. And then Tiago colors them, and I'm doubly blown away by how much better they look in color. It just really makes it look like a real comic book. When I first started getting colored pages back for issue 1, it was like, holy cow, I really made a comic book now, So yeah, they're great guys. And Tiago I found through a recommendation from another creator. But Dennis, I'm happy to say I found him on Facebook through a Facebook group. I believe it's called Connecting Writers and Artists. And it is there for people to, connect as writers and artists. And I spent several hours scrolling through the feed looking, because artists can post their samples, and you can post like, hey, I'm looking for an artist to do this. And I looked at a lot of people, a lot of samples of their artwork, a lot of their prices. And, I found just a couple that I really thought were what I was looking for. And I reached out to Dennis, and I think we connected pretty quickly, and it's been smooth sailing ever since. So yeah, it's been great, a great experience.
And so how is writing this? Was this writing the second issue any different from writing the first issue? You already have that story started. Was it easier to kind of take your characters where you wanted to take them?
It was a little bit, right? The first issue was a lot about establishing the character, but also establishing that I wanted it to be a superhero book that wasn't like other superhero books, right? It's not an action-packed slugfest. It's about the logistics and the reality of being a superhero. Like, how do you pay the bills? What do you eat? Who makes your costumes? Those are the things that I think a lot about. Once I established that stuff, then this issue was a little easier to sort of take it in different directions, because I kind of had all the groundwork, laid down for it. Also, because I knew that Dennis could translate all my thoughts very easily, it was a lot easier for me to just sort of focus on the dialogue and the story, and not having to, like, when I wrote the first script, it was a lot of, page 1, panel 1, character sits on chair, and that's important depending on how you work, but it's also tedious for me, right? I want to get to the juicy stuff, I want to write the dialogue and the action, and knowing that Dennis could pick up on that without me having to spell it all out for him, made it a lot easier for me to kind of just dive into the story and really get it going. And that's partially why I think there's so much more action in this episode, in this series, in this issue, because I knew that he could live it up, and he could draw it, and without a problem. And so it really freed me up to have more fun with it. So yeah, I'm excited.
And so who's Captain Stronghold's nemesis? Because I know that he kind of looks like a cross between Iron Man and Doctor Doom.
Yeah, definitely Doctor Doom is kind of a good comparison, but he does have a strong Iron Man look as well. But he is Dr. Deathmask, and he is kind of your very archetypal, like, super inventor, gadget, robot, bad guy type. Like, he builds like bombs, and he builds like inventions, and very Doctor Doom like in that. Not so much in taking over the world and the mystical side of things, but very much like this. I'm going to make a suit of armor, kind of like Lex Luthor in a way. That type of guy where it's like occasionally Lex climbs into his purple and green armor suit. That's how Dr. Deathmask. And he's a little more direct, a little more like, I'm going to go bomb City Hall, not so much of a, I'm mayor or president or whatever. But yeah, so he's definitely Captain Stronghold's main nemesis, and so he pops up at the end of issue 1. Like I said, he's kind of the big cliffhanger. And actually, we have a whole cover for him this issue, my homage cover, which is paying tribute to Iron Man 128, the classic Demon in a Bottle storyline. So I really love that cover. That was a fun one to put together.
Now, I know in the first issue you kind of mentioned some of the other superheroes in that universe. Are we going to, possibly? I know it's probably a mini series. I think that is 4 that you have planned out right now. But are we going to, learn more about, I would call them, like analogs of, Batman, and which, you're going to have. I mean, which.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's not creative. I'm just saying I understand that you.
I get what you're saying. I'm totally okay with that. I am definitely doing this series is about these archetypal characters. It is not about me trying to reinvent superheroes, right? Captain Stronghold is very firmly in the mold of Superman / Captain America, right? Like that's who he is. And I actually, one of the few other heroes I mentioned in the first issue is the Black Rat, who is clearly a not so subtle nod to Batman, right? So I'm okay with that. I'm not trying to, and there's a rich history in comics, right, of this. There's, you've got Squadron Supreme, which is Marvel's sort of take on the Justice League. You have the Crime Syndicate, which is sort of the evil take on the Justice League. Like there's a rich history in comics of sort of paying tribute to these great superheroes that define the genre. So I'm good with that, and that is what I'm playing with. Yes. So yeah, I think, right now I don't have plans to have any of them play a major part in this first storyline, although they may pop up a little bit here or there, get mentioned here or there. But for this one, I want the focus to stay mostly on Captain Stronghold. And it is a 4-issue miniseries. That's the plan at the moment. But I do have plans for further story arcs, and the audience is there for it. And I think so in those, I think there's a good chance we'll start to meet some of these other heroes a little bit more and have some fun with them as well.
So you say that there's the audience for it. So let's talk about the Kickstarter you're currently running, and it's already funded, which is technically funded.
It is funded. It is funded. We are funded in that we reached our goal, which means we'll get the money, which means I can absolutely print this comic, which is great. Right now we are. So a lot of times then what happens is people look at it and go, "Oh, it's funded. I don't have to pledge on it," But I like to remind people that pledging isn't donations. It is pre-ordering a finished product you're going to get in your hands, right? Whether it's a digital copy at the very least or a physical copy, you will get something for your pledge. So it's not a donation, right? It's pre-ordering something. But we're working on a stretch goal. We're only about $700 away right now from our first stretch goal, which is going to be metal bookmarks, and they're really, really cool. I got one actually as a reward for a Kickstarter that I backed. And I fell in love with it because it's kind of hard to describe why until you hold one in your hands, but they're really, really neat, and they just have this great feel to them, and they're sturdy, and they're just a lot more permanent than like a regular paper bookmark. So that's where we're reaching. If we can reach 6,000 by the end of the campaign, then every backer who gets a physical book will also get a metal bookmark. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, it's going well. There's a lot of different tiers. They start at $5 digital, $6 print, so it's really pretty cheap compared to a lot of Kickstarters. And it goes all the way up from there. We have, mega packages with variant covers. There's original artwork available, all kinds of cool stuff. So yeah, it's neat. What I always ask is if somebody is interested to just take a look at it, just check it out. And if it's not for you or you don't like the rewards, no harm, no foul. No hard feelings. But if you take a look at it, maybe you'll find something that you like. Maybe some of the pages will win you over. Some of the pledge levels will sort of speak to you. But if I can't get people to look at it, then obviously it's hard to get them to pledge. So that's my ask, is if people can just check it out, that's super helpful.
Yep. And so it looks like for just for $6 you can get issue 2.
Yeah.
And
there's a
for 10
Yep. Get issues 1 and 2 digital for $10, or $12 you get issues 1 and 2 in print, which is I think pretty affordable for Kickstarter comics to get mailed to you.
Definitely. And so I think I have up on the screen now the homage where you were talking about.
Yep, there you go. That's the one. So it's if you're a comic book geek, you definitely will recognize it. The Iron Man 128 is a very famous Marvel cover from the late 70s, where in the storyline where Tony Stark was struggling with alcoholism. And it's a cover I've always loved. It's one of my favorite storylines in comics. And I thought with Dr. Deathmask having a bit of an Iron Man look, it seemed like an obvious homage to do. So a really great guy I worked with named Dave Lentz, he did the production work on it to get us like the Iron Man looking logo and like the corner box and the price thing, everything to match the old Marvel comics from that time period. So I'm really happy with the way it turned out, and I actually have a really exciting homage cover planned also for issue 3. I'm going to do one for every issue from here on out. So we have a really fun one planned for issue 3 as well.
Very nice. And I think it is one of the levels you can get a copy of without the wording on it.
It's a popular trend in comics right now to have what they call virgin variants, which is basically just the artwork with no logo, no price, no barcode, no nothing on it. So I thought that would be a fun way to kind of give the collectors out there a little something extra. So if you go up to our $25 pledge, you get all 3 covers, which is the main cover, the variant cover, and the virgin variant cover, which is limited to 250 copies. So it'll be never to be reprinted again. So just like I said, kind of really trying to I know a lot of people out there who like to collect really do enjoy like the limited covers, the variant covers, things like that. And then there's people who just want to read the comics, right? So I had to make sure I had pledges for everybody. And I think there's a nice selection of different things for everyone, something for everybody as far as pledging goes.
And it looks like you're also offering some of the original art pages.
Yeah, this was a tough one because I want to keep them all because I love them so much. But there's a lot of pages and people do like to collect artwork. So these are original hand-drawn, penciled and inked pages by Dennis Torona. There's still a handful of them left too, and all of the pages are guaranteed to have main characters on it. There's no duds, as I like to call it. In fact, there were a couple pages that didn't have specific characters on it. I offer those at a discount. But any main pages that people, because they're selected randomly, but all of them are guaranteed to have at least the main character, on the page somewhere. So, and it's a pretty good value if you know much about collecting on page art. It's pretty expensive, and you can get a page from Dennis for under $100. So that's a pretty good deal, in my opinion.
So, is there anything that I was just I have my magnet and my card from the last last one. So.
Yeah, those are some of our first stretch goals. I really enjoyed those.
Those are fun.
Yeah.
So, are you finding last time first time kickstarting your comic? Now, is there anything that you learned from that you applied to this one, or you just kind of applied to what you've done through your other Kickstarters that you've run?
I definitely did learn something, and then the first thing I learned from my first Kickstarter was that publishing a comic book is really expensive, and I did have to up my goal. I'll be honest. On the first campaign, I asked for $2,500, and it's a good thing we did 200% of our goal, or else I would have been on the hook for a lot of money because that's not nearly enough to print and publish a comic and send it out to people. I mean, the shipping alone was like a third of that just to get them out to people. So that's why I almost doubled my goal this time, and I hated to do that because I don't want people to think I'm just being guilty or greedy. Like, oh, I did well the first time. Let's see if I can milk people for more money. But it did cost. It costs about $5,000 all told to publish a single issue of a comic book. And that's not even with a huge print run. And I'm actually paying my artist out of pocket. Like that's how I get the book, drawn before I even launch the Kickstarter. Like issue 2 is fully drawn already, right? So that's out of pocket. But just the coloring, the lettering, the printing, and the shipping, it comes to, like I said, around $4,500. So I had to ask for more this time. Luckily, we hit it again, so I'm very happy about that. Other than that, the first campaign went really well. So I've been doing pretty much the same thing, kind of the same marketing techniques. I think having the book done, or at least drawn and written before I launched it was a really good idea. So I stuck with that, and I'm going to do that again for the next issue. Because it just allows me to get the finished product into people's hands a lot faster. There's a lot of Kickstarters you pledge on, and it's like, you'll pledge now in March, and it'll be like, expected due date, June 2022. And I'm like, I have a hard time, pledging on something that I'm not going to see for over a year. I don't want people to have, and I get it. I've done it. I have on those. I understand sometimes, but I like to, if I can get them to people faster, then, I'll do that. So yeah, definitely picked up a few things along the way.
Plus, you build up goodwill with your backers, and they're more likely to, back you next time.
Exactly. I do think that was a big reason why we launched. When we launched again this new one, we got a lot of pledges very early on. And I think it's because, and I waited also to make sure that everyone had issue 1 before I launched issue 2. Right? I want people to have a chance to read it and enjoy it, but also to see, hey, this got here fast, and I can rely on this guy. This isn't one of those fly-by-night Kickstarters where I'm going to give him my money and keep my fingers crossed that I get a book. People were able to get them real quickly, so I think that we've gotten a lot of people back, because of that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Is there anything else about Kickstarter? Are you reading anything that you recommend people check out?
Yeah, I support a lot of Kickstarters, so I have to be careful how many of them I recommend. But there's two of them that I've gotten recently that I've really enjoyed. The first one is called Aster of Pan. It's a comic by a French artist named Merwan. And I believe you can get it now in bookstores as well as I don't know, because the Kickstarter campaign ended. But I just got the book a month or two ago, and I just read it a couple days ago, and I loved it. It's sort of like a Hunger Games meets Dodgeball. If you can imagine that. And it's fantastic, just great artwork and great story. I absolutely loved it. And the other one is called True War Stories. It's also, I believe, available in bookstores now. It's written by a bunch of veterans of wars from Vietnam to current. And it's just like short stories about their experiences, but it's not so much, it's not like combat stories. It's not like an action book. It's more about like the life of being a soldier, and they're very human stories. And I've been reading that, and I just really love it. They're really well done stories that I think show a lot of what it's like to be a soldier that you don't see glorified in the movies. You know, it's not fighting. It's about dealing with locals. And one story was about rats getting into their food supply. You know,
Right.
and stuff like that. So that's been a good one that I really enjoyed as well. So those are two that I'd recommend if people are interested to read. They're great reads.
I'm probably going to butcher. Isn't that the one with that Alex? What's Alex DeCamp?
Yes, yes. Alex DeCampi, yep. Who has written a bunch of comics, and she is the editor of it, along with another person who I think is a soldier. I think she's more of the comics person. The other person is a veteran. Yep. The two of them edited it together, and they sent a nice little signed postcard with it, which was great. But yeah, that's her project, and it's terrific. So, highly recommend it.
All right. Well, if that's all have, as we will wrap it up. If you want to give one last pitch for your project, I mean, you have a week to go, so people still have time to, go out and support it. So, and they should. You should.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I'll just say one thing about it in that, I work really hard to make it a fun comic. You know, I think over the last year, there's been a lot of hard stuff in the world. And I'm a big fan of escapist entertainment. So I think Red, White, and Broke is really fun. And it's a superhero comic. It's got serious stuff in it, but it's also got a lot of humor, a lot of fun. And I think people could use that. I don't know if it'll make you laugh out loud, but I think it'll at least put a smile on your face. And if I can do that, it makes me happy. So, and I just will say that I very much appreciate anybody taking the time to look at the Kickstarter page, and anybody who pledges. It's very humbling for me that people take a chance on me and support my work. And I appreciate every single pledge that people make. So yeah, if you check it out, I hope you'll like it.
And where else can they find your other writings or follow you on social networks and all that stuff?
So the best place to follow is Facebook. It's facebook.com/OuttaTimeComics. OUTTA Time Comics. That's the publishing company I've created for the comic, and that's where I'm trying to really focus all of my news and stuff about things that I'm working on publishing. I do have an author page as well. You can find just by searching for Mike Spring on Facebook. Those are the main outlets. I'm on Twitter and stuff too, but most of those are just a mirror of my Facebook feed. So, but you can find me for Mike Spring. You'll track me down.
Well, as one great meme poster to another. it was fun talking to you, and hopefully we'll be able to get together in real life soon.
That'd be great. I would look forward to that, and hopefully we can go to a comic convention again real soon and have some fun. So yeah, fingers crossed, man. Fingers crossed. Thanks for having me on again. I appreciate it. It was good to talk to you.
Thanks for working around my crazy schedule, and I'm glad we're finally able to do it, and the internet behaved this time. So
yes, it did.
All right, well, take care. Yeah, we'll definitely touch, and we'll have to come back and when you're ready to get issue 3 out there, and we'll talk about issue 2 and issue 3.
That was great. I appreciate it. Thanks, Chad.
All right, take it easy.
You too.